Here in one of our hydroponic greenhouses, we're going to show you how we're doing the fertilizer mixing. We've got water that comes into this greenhouse, and then it goes through, in this case, a set of proportioners. And so these are mechanical or water-driven proportioners, and if you think of it like a piston inside, every time that water drives that piston up and down, it's going to take a certain amount of solution from these concentrated fertilizer stock tanks and mix it with water at whatever ratio we set these particular proportioners on. But just to go through the individual steps, I want to walk you through this. We have the incoming water here, and as it goes up initially, we have a filter. Now, in addition to this filter, out near the well, we have the primary filter. So this is almost like a secondary filter here before it goes through the proportioners. Once it goes through and outside of the greenhouse, we may choose to have another filter after the injection part is completed. But what you see here is sort of a secondary filter before it goes into the injectors. So once it comes up here, we go through the proportioners, and then on down we have a set of solenoid valves that can control each zone. So this board is set up where I can have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different solenoids. So I could irrigate 5 different sections of a greenhouse. Each one of those would represent an individual zone. So let's say that if I had a group of individual towers, or a group of Beto buckets, or a group of lay flat bags, and each one of those zones had 100 plants in it, just for example, I could irrigate 100 of them on this. The next zone, that solenoid would turn it on and off and would irrigate through the second zone, and so forth. All of that is controlled by this irrigation timer or controller. So when you are going to purchase a timer, you need to make sure that it's going to be adequate to accommodate the number of zones that you want to have. In other words, if you buy a 3-zone irrigation timer and you're going to actually have 6 zones, it's not going to be adequate to be able to manage that. So all of the times are set on this irrigation controller for up to 5 zones. You might notice that right now we're only irrigating 2 of the 5 zones. The other ones have the ball valves that are cut off. So these individual valves here have a ball inside, and as we open or close it, it rotates that ball to open and allow flow to go through, or to switch that so that it closes off this particular valve. And they're easy to turn on and off. So down at the solenoid valves, these would have the wiring that would go up to one of our controllers, and that's how the system would be turned on and off. So this is an electronic control valve known as a solenoid, and the control is inside here. So these wires would go through the controller, and that's how they would be managed. A couple of points when you set this thing up. This one is set up so that we can have incoming water here and fill our tanks if we chose to do that. So we would have the short hose, and you put it over here on this side on the incoming water and be able to fill our tanks. We have to have access to water somehow, and you want to make this as easy as possible for you. I know that in some cases I've seen growers that have used this main line when it comes in before it actually goes up to the injectors to have a valve over top of each of these tanks, which makes it really nice. We use only cold water here, and that works okay. For some elements some parts of the fertilizer that are relatively insoluble, it might be an advantage for you to use warm water when you're doing that initial stock tank mixing. The next piece that comes up here, you'll notice a ball valve here and a ball valve over here. And what would happen here, if we have something that goes wrong with one of these injectors, or if we need to have them sent for service or something like that in the middle of the season, I want to be able to take them out. So we have what are known as quick disconnect joints here. So I can unscrew this joint and unscrew that one, and I can take both of these injectors out. Or I could unscrew this one and take only this individual one out if I was having problems with one or the other of the injectors. And then to be able to maintain at least water temporarily until you get the injector serviced or the proportioner serviced, then you might have a short piece, or you would have a short piece here that would be at the same fittings on the end of this, so that you could put that short piece of just PVC pipe in here, turn the system back on, and in that instance, if you do that with only one of these, then you could still potentially use the A-mix in this situation. If you had to take both of them out, you would have a longer rod that would fit in here and would be able to use this quick disconnect deal. The quick disconnects really make it good, because otherwise you've got to cut PVC and put it all back together again, and that is really difficult, if not sometimes impossible to do. So use the quick disconnects, especially for your proportioners, to be able to take them in and out of the system when you need to work on them. And oftentimes you can do a lot of the maintenance of these yourself, understanding the O-rings that are in there and what parts need to be replaced, what parts need to be cleaned. A lot of times you can do that service itself. And in that case, you may not have this off for a very long period of time, maybe an hour or two, and then you can actually put the proportioner back in and get it up and running again. So this is sort of a standard system. The basic components with water coming in: you have a filter, you have the ability to fill the tanks, you have a timer, and you have, in this case, two proportioners. And one of the proportioners goes to what we call the A-mix concentrate. The other proportioner goes to the B-mix concentrate. There is a manual setting here where you can adjust the setting. Typically, our fertilizer recipes here at the University of Florida are built around the assumption that we're going to have a 30-gallon stock tank, and these proportioners are each going to be set at 1 to 100, right? And they're going to be in line. So each of these would be set at 1 to 100. And that allows us to keep the individual nutrients that don't mix well together in a concentrated form in separate tanks, and once they go through and are diluted here and then diluted there, that they're okay at the final delivery concentration. So pretty much a standard system for a lot of our small hydroponic operations. So this is a pretty basic system that we have here, with the irrigation controller dictating what the irrigation event start times and duration are going to be. And so it doesn't have necessarily a lot of sophistication in the system, but is a good place for a smaller operator to start. There's a number of other ways to trigger the timing and the duration of an irrigation event. And some of those are pretty sophisticated, with information that would receive light and that would base an irrigation event on accumulated light over a period of time. And it may also interject into that formula other factors such as temperature and humidity and other kinds of characters that would be important in determining that precise irrigation event start time and duration. There's also something called an irrigation starter tray that is was originally developed and is used when rock wool slabs are used, and it actually has a connection in there that sends a message to the relay when the water level goes down and breaks connection with that probe, and that would trigger an irrigation event to come on. And so then that would be another relatively sophisticated way of starting that. So there's all kinds of different ways that an irrigation system can be triggered. The main things that we need to know is, when is that event going to start, and how long is that event going to last. So if we also want to be careful in the timer or the controller that we're going to buy, to make sure. I prefer to have one in seconds, so that early in the season, if it's only set at minutes and I don't really want to irrigate for a full minute, I only want to irrigate for 30 seconds, I want to be able to have that flexibility to dictate exactly how long I want those events to occur. Also, oftentimes these controllers where you're just setting it to the start and end times of an irrigation event, you may not have enough start times in this controller. So if you think you're going to start maybe 8 times a day at some point, then you want to make sure that the irrigation controller has that capacity to do that. So it's not unusual for us early in the season to maybe have just 1 or 2 really short irrigation event durations right after transplanting, and then that would gradually increase to maybe 8 or 10 or 12 irrigation events each day, depending on the crop and the system that would be utilized. So those are all important components to be able to make sure that we're going to have the capacity within the system to do what we want it to do. And that's the irrigation controller.